Good morning, friends. Good morning. I think I'm about 10 seconds late getting started on this morning. Not too bad, but good morning. I'm Brian. I'm the pastor here at Christ United Methodist Church, and you are here for another episode of PB Reads the Bible. Pastor Brian, PB. Now you got it. And we are working our way through the book of Daniel. Today we'll be looking, this is episode 9. We'll be looking at chapter 8 of Daniel today. We have moved into the second half of Daniel, which is a very vivid, visual, sensual, descriptive visions by the author or by the authors. But anyway, welcome to this session today. I'm honored that you would take time to join me. I know some of you join live, some of you watch at other times, excuse me, throughout the day or even a few days or a week later. Whatever the case is, I'm glad that you chose to take some time out of your busy lives to watch this video. So thank you for that. I'm humbled to think that you find it worthy. And I pray that you do find it worthy, that you're learning something, because I know I am. I know I am. So a couple of housekeeping things, so to speak. First, go ahead and check in. Let me know you're watching. Even if you're not watching live, I go back in later just to see who has been watching. Not to keep track, not anything like that. Just out of curiosity, and to see if there's anything you needed me to explain further, or if I'm being clear or not. So you can leave your comments. And if you are live, you can leave your questions or comments, and I will try to address them live rather than later on. And yes, again, today I'm in the sanctuary at the church. Not really. I'm in my office. But we have a green screen, and I'm able to put pictures up. This morning I was I was talking with myself. I know they say you shouldn't do that. It's okay to talk to yourself. It's even okay to answer yourself. But when you say, "What'd you say?" then you're in trouble, maybe. I was thinking, joking around with myself, saying, "Oh, maybe I should look into selling ads on my green screen. Have something behind me." This episode brought to you by Brio Coffee House or something like that. Anyway, good morning, Marilyn. Good to see you this morning. Great to have you joining us. All right. Other housekeeping things. Today's Thursday. So today's going to be it for the week. I'm not going to do another recorded session. I probably could, but you never know. I might want to talk more than a half an hour, and the system won't let me do that. So today's going to be it for this week. You've got the weekend off. We'll be back to it on Monday. Let me just triple check. I don't think I have anything going on Monday or Tuesday that's going to mess things up. Nope. Monday and Tuesday will be fine, and Wednesday. Oops. So we'll be back at it Monday with episode 10, chapter 9. Today we're gonna get into chapter 8. Excuse me. If you have any prayer requests, you can also put those in the comments. I'd love to keep those things in my prayers for you. Or you can send me a text. You can send me a text for other things as well. 570-351-1619. Sunday, we are starting our new worship series. Our worship experiences will be built around a new worship series this coming Sunday. So it'll be 3 Sundays. It's 3 Sundays, the 24th, the 31st, and also November 7th. And the series is 21 questions, 21 days to a more authentic spiritual life. And it's based around questions that John Wesley had the original Methodists ask themselves and each other. So we're going to look at some of those questions, and we're going to try something different. We're actually going to have a daily, I guess you'd say, devotional guide, prayer guide, a GPS, as it were, for your week. And each day of the week, you'll be asked to contemplate a different question, read a couple scriptures, pray about it, and that kind of thing. So hope that all works out for you. We'll have those in printed form here on the Zinc here at the On Location, if you join us on location for either of the worship experiences, 8:15 or 10:45. If you're joining us online, which we'd love to have you join us online as well, at 10:45, the GPS guides will be uploaded, I believe, here to Facebook as well as to our website, and you'll be able to download them and use them that way. Okay, so it doesn't matter if you're here or somewhere else, you'll still be able to use those guides throughout the week. And hopefully this won't be a one-time thing. Hopefully we'll be able to continue to do these GPS guides, see how it works. I probably need help writing them. So let's look at the reading for today, shall we? That was enough pre-chat. So we're going to look at chapter 8. We're going to be reading chapter 8. And in this Bible I'm using, it refers to it. It's a vision. It's a vision of Daniel. And it's titled "The Ram and the Goat" is how they title it. Now, I'm going to say this in advance that some of what you're going to hear from me today and probably for the next few days might sound like I'm repeating myself. I probably am, but that's kind of because the author of Daniel or authors of Daniel repeat themselves. They have a key message that they're trying to get out, a key message that they're trying to invite people to hear, and so they tell that message in a couple different ways, and through a multitude of visions. So if I say things today and you say, "Wait, didn't you say that the other day?" The answer is probably yes. All right, but today is the ram and the goat. And as I've been doing, I'm going to read the whole thing, which is 27 verses. I'll read the whole chapter, then we'll go back and talk about what it means. Not what it means, not what Daniel's interpreter says it means, but kind of what it really means. All right. In the 3rd year of the reign of King Belshazzar, a vision appeared to me, Daniel, after the one that had appeared to me at first. In the vision, I was looking and saw myself in Susa, the capital, in the province of Elam, and I was by the river Ulai. I looked up and saw a ram standing beside the river. It had 2 horns. Both horns were long, but one was longer than the other, and the longer one came up second. I saw the ram charging westward and northward and southward. All beasts were powerless to withstand it, and no one could rescue from its power. It did as it pleased and became strong. As I was watching, a male goat appeared from the west, coming across the face of the whole earth without touching the ground. The goat had a horn between its eyes. It came toward the ram with the 2 horns that I had seen standing beside the river, and it ran at it with savage force. I saw it approaching the ram. It was enraged against it and struck the ram, breaking its 2 horns. The ram did not have power to withstand it. It threw the ram to the ground and trampled upon it, and there was no one who could rescue the ram from its power. Then the male goat grew exceedingly great. But at the height of its power, the great horn was broken, and in its place there came up 4 prominent horns toward the 4 winds of heaven. Out of one of them came another horn, a little one, which grew exceedingly great toward the south, toward the east, and toward the beautiful land. It grew as high as the host of heaven. It threw down to the earth some of the host and some of the stars, and trampled on them. Even against the prince of the host, it acted arrogantly. It took the regular burnt offering away from him and overthrew the place of his sanctuary. Because of wickedness, the host was given over to it, together with the regular burnt offering. It cast truth to the ground and kept prospering in what it did. Then I heard a holy one speaking, and another holy one said to the one that spoke, "For how long is this vision concerning the regular burnt offering, the transgression that makes desolate, and the giving over of the sanctuary and host to be trampled?" And he answered him, "For 2,300 evenings and mornings. Then the sanctuary shall be restored to its rightful state." When I, Daniel, had seen the vision, I tried to understand it. Then someone appeared standing before me, having the appearance of a man. And I heard a human voice by the Ulai calling, "Gabriel, help this man understand the vision." So he came near where I stood. And when he came, I became frightened and fell prostrate. But he said to me, "Understand, O mortal, that the vision is for the time of the end." As he was speaking to me, I fell into a trance, face to the ground. Then he touched me and set me on my feet. He said, "Listen, and I will tell you what will take place later in the period of wrath, for it refers to the appointed time of the end. As for the ram that you saw with the two horns, these are the kings of Media and Persia. The male goat is the king of Greece, and the great horn between its eyes is the first king. As for the horn that was broken, in place of which four others rose, 4 kingdoms shall arise from his nation, but not with his power. At the end of their rule, when the transgressions have reached their full measure, a king of bold countenance shall arise, skilled in intrigue. He shall grow strong in power, shall cause fearful destruction, and shall succeed in what he does. He shall destroy the powerful and the people of the holy ones. By his cunning, he shall make deceit prosper under his hand, and in his own mind he shall be great. Without warning, he shall destroy many, and shall even rise up against the prince of princes. But he shall be broken, and not by human hands. The vision of the evenings and the mornings that has been told is true. As for you, seal up the vision, for it refers to many days from now." So I, Daniel, was overcome and lay sick for some days. Then I arose and went about the king's business, but I was dismayed by the vision and did not understand it. End of chapter 8. Okay. Woo. Again, wonderful story, beautifully told, beautifully written. I should say beautifully written. I don't want anything. I think that I said it told. Beautifully written, very visual, very, very interesting, very confusing. Ultimately, very confusing. Good morning, Maureen. Good to have you. And hello, Cheryl. Good morning to you as well. But it can be a very confusing story. So reminders, and I'm sorry, I don't want to sound like I'm mansplaining or anything like that. Just reminders. The author is writing about things that are taking place in his time and in his context, but is writing them as if he was writing them in the past about the future, okay? He is writing about them 163 BC, BCE, before the Common Era. He's writing them right then, 163 BCE. But he's writing as if he is writing them like 543 BCE, somewhere around there anyway, okay? He's writing as if he's writing 360 or 380 years in the past. He's not. He's writing about current events, but in a different way. Excuse me, but in a different way. Now, so he has this vision. There are some things about the vision that we should understand or know. First, don't get tied up with the And this is another way we know that he wasn't writing actually in the time of the exile, wasn't writing back then, because he gets dates and times and people wrong. It's a little mixed up. For instance, he says that he is, excuse me, and this one tells you where Daniel is, right, or where his vision takes place. Most of the times they don't say it, but this one does. This one says he went to Susa, the capital. Well, Susa wasn't the capital, and at the time that he is writing about, if he was writing in 543, Susa didn't exist. It had been destroyed by an invading army. I don't remember, a conquering empire. It was rebuilt, but about 30 years after this is supposed to be written down. Okay, so if he was writing at the time that he was writing it, he wouldn't have been in Susa, because Susa didn't exist. It was just rubble at that point. Okay, so he couldn't have been writing when he says he was writing. So a couple words in here, and we're back to, I believe we're back to Hebrew at this point. A couple words are odd and are confusing. He talks about that he was by the river Ulai. The river Ulai is nowhere near Susa. However, the word translated river, I shouldn't say river Ulai, but the river, there's no river near Susa. But the word translated river, also maybe with a slight change in a vowel or something like that, can mean gate. So your translation may even say gate, that he was by the Ulai gate, which would make a little more sense in telling the story, that he is by the gate, because that's where a lot of things happen. That's where things happen. So he's at the gate, but he was looking towards a river, which the nearest river is like 100 miles away from the Susa, all right, or at least the big river. And he has this vision. He has a ram with two horns. Now, and I'm going to kind of jump ahead at the same time. I'm going to tie the two things together, because he has the vision, then somebody explains to him, not just somebody, but an angel explains the vision to him. So we're going to talk about that kind of at the same time. I should say that this is the first time, in fact, although angels appear throughout the Old Testament, there's only a couple places where they're mentioned, and guess where those are? Mentioned by name. Guess where those are? Daniel. Daniel is the only one that mentions them by name in the Old Testament. In the Old Testament, and he mentions this one as Gabriel, which comes from Gabor or something like that, which kind of means like a man. All right, so it's interesting. It's interesting, but Gabriel, because of this and because of other literature and folklore, becomes the announcer. Gabriel, we always think of Gabriel as the one who speaks for God in various ways. This does indicate a movement in Hebrew thought away from a present God, an active God, giving God more transcendence, okay, more distance, that God is kind of being separating himself or herself from people and from everyday life, and God is now using angels to do God's work instead. If we think back to, if you studied Genesis with me, said that there's the reason for the two different creation stories in Genesis is that idea of transcendence and immanence, the idea of God being a distant being that speaks and things happen, and as well as God being this immanent being that is very hands-on and involved with creation and with humans. So Daniel, the author of Daniel, seems to be concentrating more on that transcendent God than that immanent God, and is using angels. to kind of fill in and do some of the work, so to speak. But it's Gabriel, and Gabriel becomes the one that we associate with speech from God. In a couple more chapters, he's going to mention Michael, whereas Michael then picks up this history and this folklore of being, well, actually Israel's guardian angel and hero, and mighty warrior on behalf of Israel. All right, but the Gabriel comes, and because there's a voice, we presume, and rightly so, I would say, that God is telling Gabriel, go explain it to him, go explain it to him. You know, that's what Daniel is, the author of, that's what Daniel is saying happens here anyway, that God tells Gabriel, go explain it to him. And his explanation is good. We're going to go into a little bit more detail about it. All right. So we've got the ram with two horns fighting in multiple directions, like going in multiple directions. And he does say it is the king of the Medes and the king of the Persians, So it's two different empires, two different kingdoms, and I would say, drawing to the end of their time, and they have to do a lot of fighting because people are trying to invade, people are revolting, whatever the case is. So that's that idea of them, of this ram in motion and fighting in multiple directions. But along comes the goat, which comes from the west, and Gabriel says it is the Greeks. It is the Greek Empire. It is the Greek Empire, and it is, without a doubt, it is the Greek Empire. And with the one horn, which is so long and strong, would be Alexander. The Great, as a matter of fact, right? Alexander the Great. Now, it describes the goat's movement as not even touching the ground, right? Isn't that what it said? It came toward the two-horned ram, yes, crossing the whole earth without touching the ground. Now, if we read this literally, we have this metaphysical or paranormal movement, supernatural movement, and we might think of an angelic being or some sort of heavenly being doing this. But we use a similar expression. In English. Oh man, that guy was moving so fast, his feet didn't even touch the ground. Or someone that arrives very quickly from a long distance. Whoo, did your tires even touch the ground as you drove here? Right? We say those kind of things. That's what's happening here. He's talking about the speed with which the Greeks under Alexander conquered the Persian Empire, Babylon, and everything that took place there and beyond. If you look at the history of Alexander, in like 3 years, he conquered virtually everything. And of course, it says that when he saw how he had conquered the world, he wept, for there was nothing left to conquer. Something like that. And paraphrase. I don't have it right in front of me. But it's the speed with which he did it. Okay, it wasn't supernatural. It wasn't Alexander was not a heavenly being or anything like that. It's just the speed with which he got there. So this goat was super fast and charged right into the ram, broke his horns, defeated the empires that were ruling, or the vestiges thereof. And it does talk that it grew and grew and grew until at the height of his power, his large horn was broken off. That would indicate the death of Alexander the Great. At the height of, he died a young man, relatively speaking, and at the height of his power. And in its place, 4 prominent horns grew up toward the 4 winds of heaven. 4 kings that followed along in the Greek Empire, But the Greek Empire was never the same without Alexander. There was a diminishing, the empire was diminished without him. It was never as great as it was under Alexander the Great. But then another horn came up, which started small, but grew in power to the sound, and it grew until all this kind of stuff. You probably know who I'm going to say it was, Antiochus IV Epiphanes, who was relatively minor character at first, but through intrigue, through assassinations, and various other things, he became extremely powerful. Excuse me. Perhaps not through the entire Hellenistic Empire area, but definitely in Jerusalem and around there. Okay, and in this section of the empire, and he did horrible things in Judah and Jerusalem. So what is it talking about here? I'm going to read through this a little bit closer. It grew until it reached the host of the heavens and threw some of the starry host down to the earth and trampled on them. It set itself up to be as great as the prince of the host. It took away the daily sacrifice from him, and the place of his sanctuary was brought low. Pause. What does all that mean? We're not 100% sure on all of it, as far as like the starry host. He might be referring just to Israel and to the people who were staying faithful. But when he speaks about the great, as great as the prince of the host, he's probably talking about the high priest. He's probably talking about the high priest. Remember, I'm still in the sanctuary here because this is all Second Temple worship, or the cultic practices. It's all based on the sanctuary, the importance of the temple. A lot of this has to do with the importance of the temple. So he's probably talking about the high priest, because it says it took away the daily sacrifice from him. Antiochus Epiphanes IV refused to allow the Jews to worship in the temple. In fact, he did a couple of things. Maybe he only did one of them, but there are different stories. One says that he set up, that he changed the temple from a worship of Yahweh to worship of Olympian Zeus, the Greek god Zeus, and that he did worship there. The other story, and it may be both, is that he actually used it as a place for a garrison, a military unit, to be stationed in the temple, both of which would have been a violation of Jewish law. And it actually might have been a combination of the two, that he was using it for the garrison and also doing the bad worship practices and all that kind of stuff. But he took that daily sacrifice away from the high priest, away from the people, perhaps away from the higher. Because the rebellion, the host of the saints, and the daily sacrifice were given over to it, taken over really by little tiny bug there, by Antiochus. Now we get into another one of those weird things, because he says, I hear a voice, how long will it take for the vision to be fulfilled? For this to end. The vision concerning the daily sacrifice, when will we be allowed to do it again? The rebellion that causes desolation, in other words, Antiochus and the things that he's done, and the surrender of the sanctuary and of the host that will be trampled underfoot. So how long will we be without the temple? And the voice said to me, it will take 2,300 evenings and mornings. Then the sanctuary will be reconsecrated. Now, if we're just reading this, we're going to say 2,300 evenings and mornings. Well, that's 2,300 days. No, because remember, what's this about? Cultic worship. It's about the temple. It's about cultic worship, where they have evening sacrifices and morning sacrifices. So if it's 2,300 evening and morning sacrifices, then it's 1,150 days, which is just over 3 years. which is approximately the amount of time that Antiochus had that garrison there at the temple prior to Joseph Maccabeus finally being able to force them out and begin cleaning and restoring the temple. So the author is writing about something based on everything else. The author is aware of what is taking place. He's aware of what is taking place. Where was I? There's something in here about looking west towards that he was moving towards toward the beautiful land. Back in verse 9, it said, grew in power to the east and to the south and toward the beautiful land. Beautiful land would be the Holy Land, would be Jerusalem. Okay, the beautiful land. So approximately just over 3 years, three and a quarter years after that happened, Joseph Maccabeus was able to push out the garrison out of the temple and begin the reconstruction. So based on all of this, the author is writing, he must be aware that that is taking place or looks really close. He probably gets word that, the Maccabeans are actually gaining. They're gaining. They're about to push them out. Okay, good. So he ties it all in there. All right. So then, yeah, then Gabriel comes, is told to explain the vision, and he explains it all to him, still in a mystical way, doesn't go into all those details, and is still saying that this is about something that's going to be happening. It's not, the author says that because he has to, again, for various reasons. He's writing about something that's already taken place, but he's trying to encourage the people who are currently going through all of this difficulty. It does say that the vision, listen, I will tell you, it refers to appointed time. Where was that line? Oh, verse 26. Verse 26. The vision of the evenings and the mornings that has been told is true. Is true. In other words, it's going to happen. Well, okay, it already did, but whatever. As for you, seal up the vision, for it refers to many days from now. Okay, why is that there? Why is that there? That's a common practice in apocryphal, in the writings of these apocrypha. The apocrypha, various different apocryphas have that common thread to them. Ezekiel has it. I think Isaiah too, in one form or another. And Revelation, this must be sealed up until the time. No, it's just that's put in there for dramatic effect, and again to make people maybe think that it was written, hundreds of years ago when it was being written today. So, we're able to read this now. That must mean that the time has come. That's the point. That's why they do it. That's why they do it. All right. It was written long ago, but we're able to read it. Oh, okay. Well, the time is here. No, just makes you think that way. It's a wonderful dramatic effect. Wonderful dramatic effect. So, what's the whole point, right? And what can we get out of it? Again, you're going to think I'm repeating myself. The point of this story, as the point throughout Daniel, is a message of hope to people that can't see it, living in a horrible time, and they can't see the hope, but there's hope. It's a message about God's future vindication, total vindication, and total overthrow of tyranny. It's also a statement that God will not be mocked. God will not be mocked. What God says will happen, will happen. There is no time warp. here. There's no time warp, that the end has been delayed or anything like that, because Daniel is not predicting the future. Dr. Towner says no one can. No one can. No one can. I'm going to read a paragraph from his exegesis, his theological assessment of this chapter, because he says it better than I could, that's for sure. For all that failure of the vision of culmination, two claims of chapter 8 remain paradigms of hope for Jews and Christians alike, namely, that the sanctuary shall be restored to its rightful state, and that the oppressor, by no human hand, shall be broken. Although God's ultimate victory is God's alone and cannot be depicted in advance in any literal way, not even on a calendar, nevertheless, the knowledge that God intends to guarantee a center of relationship between God's self and God's people, and to put a full stop on oppression, is vital and energizing knowledge. It can abundantly motivate us to get on right now with the tasks of establishing a right God-human relationship and ending oppression. It can drive us to give in our own lives foretastes of the age which lies ahead, even though that age is radically disconnected from our age and comes about only at the time and in the manner of God's own choosing. I love that. It can abundantly motivate us to get on right now with the tasks of establishing a God-human relationship and ending oppression. So Daniel's message is a message of hope. It's not set in real time, but it is speaking of God's full, total vindication, total overthrow of tyranny. In the meantime, and that is a time for which we wait. In the meantime, we don't have to just sit and wait. We can be a part of the process of bringing it and getting it started now. In other words, advancing the kingdom that has broken into this world. Well, my friends, I do pray that this has been a beneficial use of your time. I pray that you've learned something today, that God has spoken to you through something we've read, something I've said. And as you go about your days, keep those eyes and ears open, physical and spiritual, to what God is doing in your life. When you see it, when you hear it, say, "Thank you, Papa," and then tell somebody about it. Until we meet again, my friends, be blessed. Be blessed. Bye.